think good enough. Okay, so let's go over this warm-up. There will be some just regular old solving equations tomorrow, so you just want to make sure for different setups you feel comfortable. We'll look at that assignment you had Friday and see if you guys had any questions on that. And then we'll definitely be spending a lot of time going over those word problems, maybe seeing a few more and seeing what questions you have there. So when I do this type of problem, I just want to hint, this is on your assessment tomorrow, or this one like this. I just wanted you to make sure that when you see this setup, you recognize what to do. You can kind of do a few things. If you want to combine terms up here, that's perfectly fine as the first thing. What I want to do is I just want to get rid of this fraction. I don't want that there. So a lot of times people always think like you divide as your second step. In this case, you're gonna, multiply. In this case, you're gonna multiply as your first step to get rid of that fraction. So what that does is it gives us what's in the numerator by itself now. So now fraction's gone. Now I can kind of do my normal steps. If you combine before, that's great. It doesn't really matter when you do that. You get negative 4x plus 5 equals 30. And then we just have a two-step equation. We are going to get a fraction answer perfectly fine. Just leave it as an improper fraction. In this case, it would be negative 25 over 4. I don't care where the negative is, if it's out in front, if it's at the top bottom. I'll just make sure it's somewhere. And make sure, so that one was, the setup was a little different, so I wanted to show it to you. But what some people want to do, I'll kind of show you the wrong way to do it. So let's say you have combined like terms and you got negative 4x plus 5. That was still over 3 equals 10. You can't just start adding and subtracting because it's stuck in this fraction. So the main goal is get rid of the fraction first. You can multiply by what's on the denominator, we multiply by 3. And then you can do your regular kind of two-step equations from there. So I did want to show you that one. Does anyone have a question with that? So I'll throw another one of those in later just for fun. Would you rather look at just the equation stuff you did Friday, or would you rather do the word problem stuff first?
Friday.
Word problem. Oh, word problem?
Or word problem.
Okay, whatever. It doesn't really matter, we're gonna do everything.
Yep.
It don't matter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show you on Google Classroom, if I put up an answer key, what it looks like. So let me throw that bad boy up. Let me go to my Google Classroom. I have a question. When I post something, like I posted a answer key, do you automatically get an email about it? You do? Okay. I didn't know if it's like not in the stream, because I hate the stream. Okay, so you should have gotten an email. I posted it before. But in general, when I post something, once again, you'll know because you'll get an email. But everything, if I ever say something's posted, you just go to classwork. It's always there. I try to have everything organized so we don't go too crazy. This is this week. It says assignment answer keys. I know it says 2017. I was too lazy to rename it. You get the idea. It's the same answer. So I can click on that. Google is so annoying sometimes with the sharing capability. It's like if I post it, you should be able to see it. So you should be able to see it like this. Sometimes if you try to open it, it might ask for permission. You can always just hit it, I'll give you permission, but it's kind of annoying to go in and change everything. So this is what we've been doing. These are all the ones that we did last week, and I think we went over all of them.
Yep.
So those are there if you missed something. So I always like to, let's be honest, we all kind of gaze out the window for a few minutes at some point. So if you missed something, all those ones are there, so you need to scroll down, and these are the ones that you guys were trying last week. So let's just go through kind of individually. I'm gonna say, hey, does anyone want to go over this? If you do, just raise your hand and we can go over it. But now, if nothing else, you can go back and check your answers a little bit later as well. Number 1, we were finding 3 consecutive integers. I should have set up my nice little chart, but I think I was rushing to do this, I'm gonna be honest. So you should have had x plus 1, and x plus 2. You set it equal to 18. What is this 2 times? Oh, look at me, getting fancy with this one. you had to find the integers, which were 5, 6, 7, but you had to read the question. It says, what is the product of the integers? So you had to multiply 5 times 6 times 7 to get 210. That one was a little tricky. I'm not going to try tricky tomorrow. I'll give you kind of more. But does anyone have a question with finding that 5, 6, 7 using an equation? Okay, so a little tricky on the answer, but we got it. Okay, number 2 was also a little tricky. I was feeling crazy when I did this. The difference between numbers 1 and number 2 is number 1 says the sum of 3 consecutive integers. Number 2 says the set of 4 consecutive odd integers. So this one's a little trickster. And it tells us there's some, and then once again, it asks you a little bit of a different question. So I would set up a chart. I think I was just kind of doing work on a separate sheet of paper too here. So think about an odd number. If I start with 1, what's the next odd number?
3.
Odd number, 3, and then 5, and then 7. So to get from one odd number to the next, you would add 2 instead of 1. So that one was a little tricky. So when you think about an odd number, if I'll say it's x, to get to the next odd number, since you need to skip the even, you have to add 2, and then 4, and then 6. So that one was a little tricky. If it said even, you would do the same thing, plus 2, plus 4, plus whatever. So I added them up, I set it equal to negative 32, I found x, and then I found my integers. It does ask, once again, a little bit of a different question. What's the difference between the highest and the lowest? So I subtracted negative 11 minus negative 5, and I got the difference of negative 6. So I was getting a little tricky on these. But see if you can at least follow that for now. We'll try another one like that in a few minutes. So once again, the odd might have thrown you off because you had to add 2 instead of 1. Any questions on 2? Okay, so let me put up the next few and we'll kind of just see which ones we'd like to go over. So I just want you to quickly glance at your sheet. You have 3, 4, and 5. Sorry, that little thing didn't go away. Would anyone like to go over 3 or 4 or 5? Just while they're up. Everyone got 4? I'm gonna go over it quick. So in this case, they're building a fence, but it's off the back of their house. So just, I'm a terrible artist, but you get the idea. We have a house. We'll say this is the backyard. It's gonna look like this is off the thing, but you get the idea. So off this house, once again, terrible drawing. There's a fence, there's a fence, there's a fence. So basically you only need 3 sides because one side's the house. It says the lot is 50 feet wide. So we know this lot is gonna be 50 feet wide that way. And then I wanna know how long can the fence be along the side. So I'm trying to find, okay, I don't know, what are the sides? And it tells me I can purchase 140 feet. So I have x plus x, which is where I got the 2x from, the 2 sides. And then I added in the width of 50, because I need that for the back of my fence. And then I set it equal to 140, and I solved that to get 45. So pictures are sometimes helpful. As you can see, I'm not good at drawing them, but I get the idea of what's going on. So in that case, we had a house, we needed the 3 sides of fencing, so my main goal was to find that x. How long it could be on the sides. And then 5, you can see I did my nice chart ski there. I'm comparing a few things. And this thing doesn't want to go away, so I'm just gonna move it down a smidge. So now I can kind of see, I have children, adults, and senior citizens. I'm comparing them with algebraically, so compared to x, and then I'm writing my equation and solving off of that. So before we move on to the next little section, are there any questions so far?
What is the answer to 6?
I'll move down in a second.
Oh.
I know that thing. Look at you. No? All right, 6 is the last one on that page, yeah, so we'll just look at 6. 6 is literally just like, okay, here's a word. I'm going to kind of just write it in math symbols. So 8 times a number's just gonna be x. Increase by 40, so add 40 equals negative 8. You just solve that one. That one's not too Any problemos? Okay. Yes, tell me, sometimes I like switch my worksheets. If this isn't exactly the same as yours, please tell me, because sometimes I just go crazy. Okay, so on the, is it the back of that or wherever? So we have a cell phone bill, we have some charges there, so just make sure you understand where X is going. Number 8 is just comparing a few numbers. Number 9, we're talking about some people working. So take a second to check those, because once again, you tried them. The main goal now is, did you do them correctly? Ooh. So just as a heads up, when I give you, there'll just be a few word problems tomorrow, nothing crazy. But when I give them to you, the directions will say for each word problem, define your variable, write an equation and solve, show all work, all that fun stuff. So here's how I grade. I don't just say, oh, you got it right, or oh, you got it wrong, and I put an X. I give partial credit. So as I'm grading for number 7, I would say, okay, this is a 6-point problem. You get a point just for doing that, because that was part of the directions that said define your variable. So if you don't have that, even if your answer is right, you will get -1. So just as a heads up, you define your variable in your chart by just writing this stuff. So that makes sense. Then I look at your equation. That would be 2 points just to write it. If something went wrong, I might give you partial credit if it's just something little. So that's it. Then I would say, show your work. That's 2 points. So can I see what you did? How did you solve it? All that fun stuff. How much was this? I just made up. I'm gonna say this, I'm changing the thing. I'm gonna say the answer is 3 points, so I think that was a 2-point problem. But, so then getting the final answer, we'll give you the last 3 points of, I just changed how much it was, but you get the idea. So once again, it's not just right or wrong and I just move on. I go back and I look at your work. If you do a problem and I, as a math teacher, would need to show work, like I would have to mark it on paper, and you magically just don't have it, I'm gonna take points off. So if it's 5 plus 2, well, you can do that in your head. If it's a long drawn out algebraic thing, I do expect to see what you are doing. So please write it down. But in general, just show as much as you can, because then I can give you more partial credit for what you got. Does anyone need to go over 7, 8, or 9? Okay, I'm basing this off of your questions, so you want them all. Is this the end?
Yes.
Okay. So then we have 10, 11, 12. 10, we were talking about cooking bags of rice. And you can see I labeled what am I looking for. Then I did my equation. I didn't show my work. I'm sorry, forgive me. I think I did it on a separate sheet of paper. So if you do it on a separate sheet of paper, just scan it. And then I got my answer. Number 11, I said, oh, I'm comparing 2 things. I'm gonna make a little chart there and fill in. That was kind of a pain because it was a fraction. Sorry about that. I will make sure there's no fraction answers for the word problems tomorrow, just to make your life easier. And then last but not least, that one we were just talking about, what water bottles in the fridge. Let's define what you got, or what you need, excuse me, and then write your equation. So I'll give you a second to look at those 3. Once again, if you don't get the answer, just say, hey, can you just like, I know the work's there, but can you explain what the heck you're doing? Yep.
Can you explain number 11, please?
Absolutely. I'll do that in a second. I'm just giving people another minute to look. Would anyone want, just while it's, does anyone want to go over 10? Perfect. Guys, it's my job to explain. If you got it, if you got a question, ask. So we'll do 10, then we'll do 11, and we'll see if anyone can go. So here was my thinking. I read it. So a cook buys 2 identical bags of rice. They use some rice in each bag. So one's half full, the other's a third full. And then at the end, he's like, hey, I got these bags. Let's combine them together. Should just make 1. And then that one has 3 1/3 cups of rice. How much rice was in the full bag? So you can see right over here, I define X is the cups of rice in a full bag, okay? So then I just go back and remind myself. In the first bag, it was half full. So it's half a bag of rice, because X represents the bag of rice. And then the other third is the other bag is 1/3 full, so that's 1/3 a bag of rice. And then when I mixed them all together, I had 3 1/3 cups. So hopefully if you're having an issue with this setup, that makes a little more sense, but once again, it's all about labeling, and then hopefully it makes sense where your variables are going. To solve this, I multiplied everything by 6, so I didn't have to deal with the fractions. So 6 times 1/2 is 3. 6 times 1/3 is 2. 6 times 3 1/3, I'm gonna change this to an improper, what would that be, 10/3? I like impropers better, I hate missing numbers that confuse my brain. So that would be, remember I'm cross reducing, so 6/3 is 2 times 10 is 20. So that made life a little bit easier, that gives me 5x equals 20. So x, when I divide that out, you guys can do that in your head, equals 4 cups of rice. The main goal, like, this is what I always do, especially if I have a confusing word problem. I go back, I know somewhere in my problem, I'm gonna have to put 1/2, I'm gonna have to put 1/3, and I'm gonna have to put 3 1/3. Like, if I just read that, I know that's gonna have to happen. So the main goal, once you kind of write those down, is the x go with the values, or are they just kind of constant, so then you go back and figure out where x goes. But when you read through, just make sure everything in the problem should be included somewhere in the equation. Any other problems with 10? Okay, so 11. You can see my nice, I'm defining using my chart. I can't talk today. So the length is 7 yards more than 5 times the width of 5x plus 7. Hopefully that makes sense. And we're comparing to the width, so that's my x. Just remember perimeter, always draw a picture here if you're going to forget. When we were talking about a rectangle, if this side's x and this side's 5x plus 7, the perimeter, you have to add all of the sides up, not just 2 of the sides. So you have to remember, oh, this side's 5x plus 7 and this side's x. So you can say 2 times x and then 2 times 5 times 7, that's what I did. And so when I'm doing the perimeter, there's 2 x's, this side and this side, and then there's 2 sides at 5x plus 7. So that would equal 150. So the big thing people do is they just add those 2. Now you need to make sure the other 2 are included as well. So you can see my steps to solve. Distributing, combining like terms, all that fun stuff. It came out to 11 1/3, which is kind of annoying, so sorry about that. So I plugged that back in. I did 5 times 11 1/3 plus 7. I thought it was just 11 1/3. It did ask me what's the area, so then I multiplied those 2. I will not make you do that with fractions tomorrow. That's going to be annoying. So I'll make sure all the numbers are semi-decent to deal with. But the big thing, you might want to draw a picture for perimeter just to remind yourself what that means. And then that last one, I'm just here, so why not look at it? There are 9 water bottles in demonstration. He adds 3 full boxes, so X is the number of water bottles in the box, so it makes sense that X goes with that. Then he adds 2 more boxes, but each of them, like someone grabbed the one out, so you need to remember since one was taken out, in parentheses, it's a box minus 1. And then that would be 67 bottles. That's a lot of bottles of water in your fridge. How many bottles are in a full box? We just go through and solve for X. I know what X represents, and there are 12. Does anyone have any questions there? Or before we kind of look at a few more for us to try before we leave today, does anyone have any questions in general? Okay. So in a second, we'll look back at that equation worksheet as well and just see if there's any that you would like to go over. So that means you got to it, you said, ugh, like you sighed or you wanted to rip the paper up in that moment. So those are the ones we want to clear up today. And then we'll just try a few more practice. So before we do that, I just want to give you an idea of the layout for tomorrow, because I always like to come in knowing what the heck to expect. So we will come in, you'll sit down. I'm gonna get you started before I do the Google Meet, just so you have it. I hate like waiting for 5 minutes when you're trying to do something. So to get started, what I do, I tend to find, some people have a hard time with like just time management. They'll spend like way too much time on a problem that's not worth that many points and then run out of time. So the first thing I do is I label every problem with how many points it's worth, so you know. Like if there's a 1-point problem and there's an 8-point problem, do the 8-point problem first. So that kind of gives you an idea. It's gonna look like it's backwards. I do that on purpose, because usually when you take a test or a quiz or an assessment, it kind of starts with the easy and goes to the hard. I do it backwards. I start with the ones that are the most points and then work their way down. So the multiple choice is actually the last thing on the quiz or assessment, whatever you want to call it. There's a few, I think there's like 3 word problems where you have to set them up and solve them, similar to this. So 3, not terrible. There's 1 or 2 word problems. You just have to set up the equation and then you're done. So you don't have to do extra work. That just, once again, is trying to save us some time. So you're not sitting doing it forever. Please don't do the work. It will not get you extra credit. It will just have you do that problem for 0 reason. So make sure you are looking and reading directions. Then there's a section with just some solving equations. I think it's like maybe 6 problems, just different setups. And then there's a few multiple choice. I will let you know, a few of the multiple choice do have to do with rational and irrational and the different subsets of numbers. So that is something I would look over tonight. Like what if something, or is something an integer or a whole number or a natural number? So those are things you should look over. They're just multiple choice, but it's better to know them than to not know them. So that's how the assessment will be set up tomorrow. You will have the period. I'm making it so it's very doable in the period. You do have to kind of make sure you're working and getting everything in, because unfortunately with just our life and our schedule, you can't really come back later. Like you can't come during a study, after school. It's not really fair because a lot of people take the bus, so it's not fair if I let one person come and the other person can't. So we're gonna say like you have a period and then that's kind of it. So just be aware of time. I'll kind of give you some time things. I'm not trying to like kill you or give you ridiculous things. I'm just trying to see in general, have you been following what we've been doing? So do your best. Does anyone have a question with how the assessment, I'm gonna keep calling it a quiz, how the assessment is set up? All right, let's just do, while I have my Google Classroom open, let's just do a quick gander here. At last week's Friday, okay, so Thursday you did the word problems. Friday you did some solving equation practice. Zoom in a little more. So let's just see, were there any things from that worksheet? I'm not gonna go over every single one. Some of the ones at the beginning were just like 1-step equations, but let me scroll down a little. Were there any problems that people would like to go over together? You got a weird answer, you didn't know what to do. We do see some fraction problems, you will see it. Not a ton of them, but maybe 1 or 2 of them tomorrow. But anything you'd like to go over? Yes, ma'am.
So with the fraction problems, you can just put, like parentheses around it and multiply by the common denominator.
Exactly, that's what I would do, yep. Common denominator, and then once you multiply in, that should get rid of all your fractions, and then it's just a regular old problem. Any from this worksheet people would like to go over?
And the answers will be on Google Classroom?
Probably. If they're not, just remind me. I have like 1,000 things I'm trying to post in the next day or 2.
Okay.
Yeah. I will, just if you don't see it up by this afternoon, I don't know, whenever,
Okay.
just remind me. I should have it in, but I'm a bit of a scattered mess lately, so. Any questions? Okay, so I will put those up, so just check them. You guys have all sorts of fun technology if you need extra help as well that you can check them on. All right, so let's just try a word problem or 2 and see how you're feeling. So once again, on an assessment, I'm just seeing, can you do this on your own? That's really all I care about. If you can't, then you should be asking questions. If you can, you should feel pretty comfortable. If you're kind of like in between, like, I kind of can sometimes, like maybe, just do your best. Remember, I always give partial credit, so do something and you won't get a 0. Please don't do nothing, that would be a big disaster. So we'll go from there. So give me 1 second, I have all these word, oh my gosh. I have all these word problems, we'll just pick a fancy one to do here. Why, go away. Sorry, I'm mad at myself. Now they're not gonna work. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh, what is happening right now? Stop. Let me see what I got. Oh, let's do one like this. Okay, I'm just gonna copy and paste it so I don't see 8,000 things. And I think some of these are actually on here. You know, we have to use computers all the time, but they're not fun. Okay, let me make it a little bigger. I know it's hard for you to see. Okay, so here we go. So we've seen one like this in the past. So it tells me Corbett saved up for a vacay. He spent some of his money on travel expenses, some on money on the hotel. He spent $1,100. How much money did he have? So if you saw that tomorrow, would you be able to, what am I looking for to find a variable? Would I be able to write an equation? And then would I be able to solve it? So I'll give you a few minutes. See what you can do. You should be able to do something. Something is always better than nothing. So if I saw this tomorrow, which you're gonna see one like this, would I know what to do? So I want to just give you a few minutes to self-assess. Let's say in about, I don't know, 2 more minutes, we'll just see how far you got. I know that might take a minute or 2 to actually solve. One more minute, we'll come back together and see how you're feeling. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's just see, okay, if I saw this tomorrow, one, would I even know where to start? And how far did I get? So the first thing I'm gonna do is, what am I looking for, defining my variable. How much money did he have? So X is gonna be the money he had. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, it's just what are you kind of looking for? So then it tells me he spent a third of the money he had on travel expenses. And he spent 2/5 of the money he had on his hotel, for a total of 1,100 spent. So my main goal is to solve for X to figure out how much he originally had. Does anyone right now have a question with that equation or how we got it? Okay, I would say, well, I don't really want to solve this, but I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna multiply everything, even this. Some people tend to just kind of go like that because those are the other fractions. Technically, that's over 1. So everything gets multiplied in this case by 15. So remember, I'm kind of reducing as I go. 15 over 3 is 5, times 1 is 5x. 15 over 5 is 3, times a 2 is a 6x. Well, what's 15 times 1,100? Well, 15 times 11 is 5, is 1, is 5, is 1, is 165. So 16,500. So I just added the 2 zeros on the end once I actually multiplied that. And then, what does that give me? 11x equals 16,500. I'm gonna divide both sides by 11. Is the answer 1,500?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just noticed, because I multiplied by 15 and I'm dividing times 11, and I'm dividing by 11, so it's same difference. So the final answer comes out to $1,500 would have been his, or the amount that he brought. So he spent 1,100. You could say something like, how much money does he have left? Well, if he brought 1,500 and he spent 1,100, he has 400 left. So always just make sure you're actually answering the question. In general, I'll try not to give you crazy numbers tomorrow. I know like doing all that stuff takes time. We are not going to be using calculators, so I know that hurts some of your hearts, but we're gonna do our best just to use our brains. And once again, I will make sure I go through and nothing will be too crazy. You might see a fraction or two, but nothing that makes your brain hurt, hopefully. Does anyone have a question on that one? All right, we'll do one more, we'll just set it up. You don't even have to solve it. But let me look back at some different, let's just do this one. Because we saw one like this. Put it right underneath. Oh, computer, I want to tell you out the window. Okay. So we saw one like this, and you can't see it, so that's not helpful. Hold on. There you go. So we saw one like this on your worksheet that you guys did. It says find 4 consecutive, but it says odd integers. So if I said something like that, or if it was even, same idea, how would you set that up? You don't even have to solve it for now. It's just in general, because we only have about 4 or 5 minutes left. In general, if you saw that problem, would you know what to do? And we will go over it in a minute or two. I just want to give you guys a second to self-assess. So let's kind of look. So once again, it's more tomorrow when you see a problem, You're trying to think back, okay, I've seen this in the past, can I remember what to do with it? Hopefully you do. And do your best to set up and solve it. So this one we'll just set up. Find 4 consecutive odd integers. So the first thing I'm gonna do is make a chart with 4 rows. I want the first number, second number, third number, fourth number. Okay. For any of these, well, it says consecutive integers, consecutive even, or consecutive odd, your first number is always just x. And then once again, if it says consecutive odd or even, you would say the next one is x plus 2, because if this was an odd number, the next odd number, you'd have to skip the even, so you'd have to add 2. Then x plus 4, and then x plus 6. Let's make sure sometimes it will only say 3, so you don't need to do that extra row. And if I said, what is the equation of this? You would say x plus 2 plus x plus 4 plus x plus 6 equals negative 32. And then you, in this case, read directions tomorrow, because there are a few where I just say set it up, then you'd be done if it just says set up. Don't do extra work. Don't be like, I'm just, I'm gonna show her. Like, I'm happy if you can do it, but don't do more work than you have to. I'd rather have you take like a 5-minute nap at the end, so you do that, but there's no reason to. So your main goal, I would definitely just kind of glance through your problems tonight, just so you can see general setups. So technically your homework is just to study, organize your brain. And then